He'll understand. He has to. Sarah's voice cracked as she stared at the two pink lines, her reflection ghostly in the cramped bathroom mirror. The pregnancy test trembled between her fingers. Outside, traffic hummed through the thin walls of her studio apartment, indifferent to the earthquake splitting her world open. 3 weeks ago, Minjun had kissed her goodbye at dawn, his tie still loose around his neck, promising to call. He hadn't. 2 weeks ago, she'd seen his face in the business section, rising star of Mintech Corporation named youngest director. 1 week ago, her period didn't come. Now this. She set the test on the sink's chipped edge and pressed both palms against the cool porcelain, breathing through waves of nausea that had nothing to do with morning sickness. The fluorescent bulb flickered overhead, casting shadows that made her 22-year-old face look ancient. Her phone sat on the toilet lid, Minjun's contact photo staring back, his confident smile, designer sunglasses reflecting a world she'd briefly touched but never truly belonged to. Sarah had been a server at the hotel restaurant where Mintech held their executive dinners. He'd noticed her, talked to her, made her feel like she mattered. 1 night became 2. 2 became a month of stolen hours and whispered plans. Then silence. She picked up the phone. Her thumb hovered over his name. Just tell him, she whispered to herself. He's not like that. He's not. But her hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. The call connected on the 3rd ring. Sarah? Minjun's voice sounded distant, distracted. This isn't a good time. I'm heading into a meeting. I'm pregnant. The words fell between them like stones into a well, swallowed by silence, so complete, she thought the call had dropped. Minjun? Did you hear me? I heard you. His tone had shifted, cooler now, measured. We need to talk. Face to face. There's a cafe on 5th and Madison. Meet me there in an hour. The line went dead before she could respond. Sarah changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on a simple navy dress that didn't yet strain against her still flat stomach. She took the bus across town, watching the neighborhoods transform from crumbling brick to polished glass, each block a reminder of the distance between her life and his. The cafe was the kind of place where coffee cost more than her hourly wage. Minjun sat in the corner booth, his tailored charcoal suit sharp enough to cut. He didn't stand when she approached. Didn't smile. Just gestured to the seat across from him with the clinical efficiency of a man conducting a business transaction. You look well, he said, his eyes not quite meeting hers. Sarah slid into the booth, her cheap purse suddenly feeling like a burden in her lap. I'm 2 months along. The doctor confirmed it yesterday. Minjun's jaw tightened. He glanced around the cafe, checking, she realized with growing dread, if anyone was watching them. Sarah, I need you to understand something. His voice dropped lower, professional. What we had was, it was fun. But it was never serious. You knew that, right? Fun. The word tasted like poison. Minjun, we talked about. We talked. He cut her off smoothly, leaning forward. People talk. It doesn't mean anything. And this. He gestured vaguely at her stomach. I don't know what you're trying to pull, but I'm not falling for it. We were careful. This isn't mine. The cafe sounds, clinking cups, murmured conversations, soft jazz, became white noise against the roaring in her ears. What did you just say? I said it's not mine. Minjun pulled out his wallet, extracted 3 crisp $100 bills, and placed them on the table between them. This should cover whatever you need to handle the situation. But I want to be clear, I don't know you. We don't know each other. If you try to contact me again, I'll deny everything. Do you understand? Sarah stared at the money, at his perfectly manicured hands, at the expensive watch glinting on his wrist, probably worth more than her rent for a year. Minjun, please. Her voice broke despite her efforts to control it. I'm not trying to trap you. I just thought you should know. I thought you'd want to. Wanna what? He stood abruptly, smoothing his suit jacket. Throw away everything I've built? For what? A mistake. The word landed like a slap. That's what this is to you? Sarah looked up at him, tears burning hot behind her eyes, but refusing to fall. A mistake? I have a meeting. He dropped a business card beside the cash. Not his personal one, she noted, but the company's general line. If you need anything else, call that number. Ask for HR. They'll handle it discreetly. Minjun turned and walked toward the exit, his stride confident, unhurried. Sarah watched him pause at the door, watched his hand hover on the handle. For one desperate second, she thought he might turn around, might see her, might remember who she was to him just weeks ago. He pushed through the door without looking back. Sarah sat alone in the booth, staring at the money he'd left behind like blood money for a crime she hadn't committed. Around her, the cafe continued its comfortable rhythm, oblivious. The barista called out orders. A couple laughed at a nearby table. Outside the window, Minjun's figure disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by a world that would always welcome him and always reject her. She reached for the cash with trembling fingers, hating herself for needing it, and left. The next 6 months blurred together in a haze of exhaustion and humiliation. Sarah worked 3 jobs: morning shift at a convenience store, afternoons cleaning office buildings, nights delivering food on a battered bicycle that left her thighs burning. Her body changed in ways that terrified her. Her ankles swelled. Her back ached constantly. She slept on a friend's couch until the friend's boyfriend complained about the space. One night, 7 months pregnant, and carrying plastic bags of groceries up 4 flights of stairs to her new basement studio, Sarah passed Mintech Corporation's flagship building. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see a party in full swing. Men in tuxedos, women in evening gowns, champagne flutes catching the light like stars. And there, in the center of it all, was Minjun laughing, his arm around a woman in red silk, living the life he'd protected by erasing her from it. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, rain beginning to fall, watching the celebration she'd never be invited to. Her hand moved unconsciously to her swollen belly. "Just you and me," she whispered to the baby kicking inside her. "That's how it'll be. Just us." She turned away from the golden light and walked into the darkness, toward the basement apartment with its single window and leaking ceiling. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna, where stories like this reveal the secrets families try to bury. Because what comes next will show you what happens when the past refuses to stay buried, and when the daughter of denial walks straight into her father's empire, completely unaware that the man testing her worth is the same man who denied her existence before she drew her first breath. 2 months later, on a night when winter rain turned the streets into black mirrors, Sarah's water broke while she was restocking shelves at the convenience store. Her manager called her a cab, but didn't offer to come to the hospital. She rode alone, gripping the torn vinyl seat, counting breaths between contractions. The hospital corridor was too bright, too cold. Nurses moved efficiently past her. They'd seen 1,000 women like her, alone and afraid. No partner. No family. Just another single mother taking up a bed. Labor lasted 14 hours. Sarah screamed herself hoarse into a pillow, her hands gripping the bed rails so tightly her knuckles went white. No one held her hand. No one whispered that it would be okay. The doctor was kind but distant, the nurses professional but hurried. When the baby finally came, a girl with Sarah's dark eyes and a lusty, outraged cry, Sarah wept. Not from pain. Not from relief. From the sudden, overwhelming knowledge that she'd carried this miracle alone and would continue alone. The nurse placed the tiny, perfect weight on her chest. "Have you chosen a name?" the nurse asked, clipboard ready. Sarah looked down at her daughter's scrunched face, still red from her journey into the world. Outside the window, rain streaked down glass, and somewhere across the city, Minjun was probably sleeping peacefully in silk sheets, completely unaware that his daughter had just taken her first breath. "Bella," Sarah whispered, pressing her lips to the baby's damp forehead. "Her name is Bella." "And the father's name? For the birth certificate?" Sarah's hand instinctively curled protectively around her daughter. "Unknown. Leave it blank." The nurse nodded without judgment. She'd seen this story before too, and made a note on her clipboard. That night, after the nurses dimmed the lights and the other mothers' families finally left, Sarah lay in the narrow hospital bed with Bella sleeping on her chest. Through the thin walls, she could hear a television in the next room. A news broadcast talking about Minteca's latest acquisition, Minjun's face flashing across the screen for 3 seconds before cutting to sports scores. "He doesn't get to know you," Sarah whispered into the darkness, into Bella's soft baby hair. "He doesn't deserve you. You're mine. Only mine. And I will give you everything he never gave us. I promise." Bella's tiny hand curled around Sarah's finger, a grip stronger than Sarah expected. In that grip, Sarah found something she'd lost the day Minjun walked out of the cafe: purpose. "Just you and me now, Bella," she said, her voice steadier than it had been in months. "Just us against the world." Outside, rain continued to fall on the city that held both their future and her past, washing the streets clean but changing nothing. "Why do you stay here until midnight?" Minjun's voice cut through the silence of the empty office, making Bella jump. She thought she was alone on the 43rd floor, surrounded by the ghost blue glow of computer screens and the distant hum of cleaning crews on lower levels. He stood in the doorway of his private office, tie loosened, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The first time she'd seen him look anything less than perfectly composed. "I could ask you the same question, sir." Bella saved her work, swiveling her chair to face him. He stepped into the open floor plan, hands in his pockets, surveying the empty desks like a general inspecting abandoned battlefields. "I have an excuse. I built this company from nothing. What's yours? Maybe I'm trying to build something too." Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe respect, before his usual mask settled back into place. He moved to the window, gazing out at the city lights stretching toward the horizon. Bella watched his reflection in her dark computer screen, the way his shoulders carried tension she'd never noticed in daylight meetings. "Your mother," he said abruptly, not turning around. "Tell me about her." Bella's fingers stilled on her keyboard. "Why?" "Humor me. I'm curious about what shapes people into what they become." The question felt like a test, another impossible standard to meet. But something in his tone, a genuine curiosity rather than corporate manipulation, made her answer honestly. "She's the strongest person I know," Bella said carefully. "Worked 3 jobs to raise me alone. Never complained. Never asked for help. Just survived." "And your father?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Bella's jaw tightened. "Never in the picture. Some men run from responsibility." Minjun flinched. The movement was subtle, a tightening around his eyes, a fractional shift in his posture, but Bella caught it. He turned from the window, and for a moment, his carefully constructed armor seemed to crack. "That must have been difficult," he said quietly. "Growing up without." "I didn't grow up without anything." Bella's voice came out sharper than intended. "I had everything that mattered. Love. Support. Someone who showed up. That's more than a lot of people with 2 parents get." He studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You're angry." "I'm stating facts." "No." Minjun moved closer, stopping at the edge of her desk. "You're angry. At him. At the absence. At the questions you'll never get answered." Bella stood, needing to reclaim some physical ground. "With all due respect, sir, you don't know anything about my relationship with my absent father." "Don't I?" The question came out softer than expected, almost wounded. "I know what it's like to make choices you can't take back. To build walls so high you forget what you were protecting yourself from." They stood 3 feet apart, the desk between them feeling suddenly inadequate. Bella's heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't the CEO who dismissed her work as merely adequate. This was someone else entirely, someone vulnerable and lost. "Why do you push so hard?" Minjun asked. "The impossible deadlines. The criticism. You could have quit a dozen times by now. Most people would have." "Because I don't quit," Bella said. "Because I learned from someone who never got the luxury of giving up. Because every time you tell me something's impossible, I remember watching my mother work 16-hour days while pregnant women half her age complained about being tired." Minjun's expression shifted, guilt, admiration, something deeper she couldn't name. He reached for a file on her desk, and their fingers brushed. The contact lasted a fraction of a second, but electricity shot up Bella's arm. He jerked back as if burned. "You remind me of someone," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't remember who." Before Bella could respond, his phone buzzed. The spell broke. Minjun straightened, his CEO mask sliding back into place with practiced ease. "Finish up soon," he said, already moving toward his office. Even the strongest people need sleep. He disappeared behind his door, leaving Bella alone with racing thoughts and the phantom warmth of his touch still tingling on her fingers. Sarah's apartment smelled like jasmine tea and old books. Bella found her mother at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and a calculator, her reading glasses perched on her nose. The sight was so familiar it ached. How many nights had Bella fallen asleep to the sound of her mother counting pennies, making impossible numbers work? "You're home late," Sarah said without looking up. "Again. Big project." Bella dropped her bag on the counter, exhaustion settling into her bones. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Sarah's hands stilled on the calculator. She removed her glasses slowly, and Bella saw the fear flash across her face before she could hide it. "Of course, honey. What is it? Why did you never tell me anything about him?" "My father. Not even his name." The color drained from Sarah's face. She stood, busying herself with the tea kettle, her back to Bella. "Where's this coming from?" "Nowhere. Everywhere." Bella sank into a chair. I look at Minjun sometimes, and I wonder if my father was like that. Cold. Distant. Someone who built empires while people around him struggled." Sarah's hand trembled as she poured water, the sound of liquid hitting ceramic too loud in the small kitchen. "Your father was young," she said carefully, still not turning around. "Scared. He made a choice he thought was right at the time." "A choice to abandon you?" "A choice to protect what he'd built." Sarah finally turned, and Bella saw tears glistening in her eyes. "People aren't always villains, Bella. Sometimes they're just terrified of losing what they have, of being vulnerable, of admitting they made mistakes." "You're defending him." Bella couldn't keep the accusation from her voice. "After everything he put you through." "I'm not defending anyone." Sarah sat across from her daughter, reaching for her hands. "I'm trying to help you understand that people are complicated, that the man who hurt me might have been someone else entirely in different circumstances, that rage and understanding can exist in the same heart." Bella stared at their joined hands, her mother's calloused and scarred from years of hard labor, her own smooth and manicured from office work. The generational divide mapped in skin and calluses. "Do you ever wish you'd told him?" Bella asked. "About me?" "Later. When I was older." Sarah's grip tightened. "Every single day. And every single day, I'm grateful I didn't. Because you're mine, Bella. You became who you are because of what we survived together, not in spite of it." "But what if?" "No what ifs." Sarah's voice turned fierce. "You don't build your life on what ifs. You build it on what is. And what is, right now, is that you're succeeding at that company. You're proving everything I always knew you could be. Don't let ghosts of the past distract you from that." Bella nodded, but something nagged at her. The way her mother's eyes kept darting to her phone, the tremor in her hands that wasn't just age, the careful way she'd avoided saying anything concrete about Bella's father. Like she was protecting a secret too dangerous to speak aloud. "Mom, are you okay? You seem—" "I'm fine, honey." Sarah stood abruptly, gathering bills with forced efficiency. "Just tired. You should get some sleep. Big day tomorrow, I'm sure." But Bella caught the way her mother glanced at the calendar on the wall, where a company event was marked in red pen, the annual gala, scheduled for this weekend. The one where Bella had asked Sarah to be her plus one. The one her mother had been trying to find excuses to skip for the past 2 weeks. The Mintech Gala transformed the ballroom into a cathedral of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast diamond patterns across marble floors. String quartets played Vivaldi in corners. Men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns moved through the space like beautiful, predatory fish. Bella stood at the entrance in a midnight blue dress that had taken 3 months of savings, scanning the crowd for her mother. Sarah had texted that she was running late, stuck in traffic, would be there soon. But something in the terseness of the message made Bella's stomach clench. "You look stunning." Director Choi appeared at her elbow, champagne flute in hand, his silver hair perfectly styled. He'd always been kind to Bella, offering advice when others offered criticism, defending her work in meetings when Junho tried to undermine her. "Thank you, Director. Have you seen your mother? She just arrived." "I saw her checking her coat." Choi's eyes twinkled with something Bella couldn't quite read. "Though I must say, the resemblance is striking. I can see exactly where you get your determination from." Before Bella could respond, she spotted Sarah emerging from the coat check. Her mother wore a simple black dress, elegant in its modesty, refusing to compete with the opulence around her. But it was Sarah's face that stopped Bella cold. Pale. Terrified. Eyes scanning the crowd like a deer sensing wolves. "Mom," Bella waved, pushing through the crowd. Sarah's expression shifted when she spotted her daughter, relief mixed with something darker. Dread, maybe. She moved toward Bella with visible reluctance, each step requiring effort. "You made it," Bella said, hugging her. "I was starting to worry." "Traffic," Sarah murmured against her daughter's shoulder. "This place is impressive. Come on, let me introduce you to some people." Bella took her mother's hand, feeling it ice-cold despite the warmth of the room. "You okay?" "Fine. Just overwhelmed." They moved through the crowd, Bella pointing out colleagues and executives. Sarah smiled at the right moments, nodded at the right times, but Bella felt the tension radiating from her mother's body like heat. Then she saw him. Min-jun stood across the room, surrounded by board members and foreign investors, commanding attention without effort. He laughed at something someone said, the sound carrying across the ballroom. Bella felt the familiar mixture of frustration and unwanted attraction that plagued her whenever he was near. "That's him," she said to her mother. "CEO Min-jun. The one I've been telling you about." Sarah had gone completely still. Bella turned to find her mother staring at Min-jun with an expression she'd never seen before, raw, undiluted horror mixed with something that looked like grief. "Mom?" Min-jun chose that moment to glance in their direction. His eyes met Sarah's across the crowded room. Time seemed to suspend. Bella watched recognition slam into him like a physical blow, his face going white, his champagne flute tilting dangerously in his hand, his entire body going rigid with shock. "Mom, what?" "We need to leave," Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. "Right now." "What? Why?" But Min-jun was already moving through the crowd toward them, his path as inexorable as a tide. People parted instinctively, sensing the intensity rolling off him. Sarah's hand tightened on Bella's arm, nails digging in hard enough to leave marks. "Bella," Min-jun said when he reached them, his voice carefully controlled despite the tremor Bella could hear underneath. "I see you brought a guest." "Yes, sir. This is my mother, Sarah." "Mom, this is CEO Min-jun." Sarah extended her hand with visible effort. Min-jun took it, and Bella watched something electric and terrible pass between them. The handshake lasted 3 seconds too long. Neither of them seemed to breathe. "A pleasure," Min-jun said, each word sounding like it cost him. "Your daughter is exceptional. One of the most talented people I've had the privilege of working with." "She's everything to me," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "My entire world." They stood in a triangle, Bella between them, completely oblivious to the decades of pain and silence compressing the air around them. Min-jun's assistant approached, whispering something about investors waiting, but he waved her away without breaking eye contact with Sarah. "Your birthday is in March, isn't it?" the assistant said to Min-jun, trying to fill the awkward silence. "The 23rd? We were just discussing the annual celebration." Sarah's champagne flute slipped from her fingers. Bella caught it just before it hit the floor, but drops of golden liquid splattered across her dress. "Are you okay?" Bella steadied her mother, alarmed by Sarah's sudden pallor. "I'm fine. Just clumsy." But Min-jun was staring at Sarah with dawning comprehension. March 23rd. The same month, Bella realized with a sinking feeling, that she'd been conceived 22 years ago. She'd done the math 100 times growing up, trying to piece together the mystery of her origins. That chill I felt in that moment, have you ever felt that too? When your heart knows something before your mind catches up. Tell me in the comments if you've been there. Your story might help someone else see the signs. The moment stretched impossibly long. Mrs. Park materialized from somewhere, her sharp eyes taking in the scene with the assessment of someone who'd worked in corporate politics for 3 decades. "Everything all right here?" she asked, her voice light but her gaze penetrating. "Perfect," Minjun said, though his hands had curled into fists at his sides. "I was just complimenting Miss Sarah on raising such an exceptional daughter. The resemblance is quite striking, don't you think, Mrs. Park?" Mrs. Park's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of her shock. "Indeed, sir. Quite striking." Bella looked between them, confusion giving way to unease. The adults in this conversation seemed to be speaking a language she couldn't understand, trading coded messages in plain sight. "We should let you get back to your guests," Sarah said, already backing away, pulling Bella with her. "Thank you for the invitation." "Wait." Minjun's voice stopped them. "Sarah, could I have a word? In private. It's about a business matter." "I don't think." "Please." The word came out desperate, stripped of corporate polish. "It's important." Sarah glanced at Bella, who shrugged, bewildered. "I'll get us drinks," Bella offered. "Be right back." She moved toward the bar, glancing back to see Minjun guide her mother toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. They stood facing each other, Minjun's hand on Sarah's elbow, not restraining, but anchoring. Even from a distance, Bella could see her mother trembling. At the bar, Junho materialized beside her, already on his 3rd drink if his flushed face was any indication. "That your mom?" he asked, following Bella's gaze. "Weird that the CEO's talking to her so intensely. You don't think there's something?" "Don't." Bella cut him off coldly. "Whatever you're about to say, don't." Junho held up his hands in mock surrender, smirking. "Just making an observation. Your mom's pretty for her age. And Minjun's single. Very eligible. Maybe they have history." The suggestion should have been absurd. But something about the way Minjun and Sarah stood, the careful distance they maintained, the way neither could seem to look away from the other, made Bella's stomach twist. "You're drunk," she said, grabbing 2 glasses of wine and turning away. But the seed of doubt had been planted. She watched her mother and Minjun talk, or rather, watched them stand frozen in conversation that looked more like mutual devastation. Minjun's face cycled through emotions, shock, guilt, something that looked like longing. Sarah's remained carefully blank, but tears streaked silently down her cheeks. Director Choi appeared at Bella's side, following her gaze. "Your mother is a remarkable woman," he said quietly. "To raise you alone, to survive everything she must have endured. That takes strength most people will never understand." "How do you know she raised me alone?" Choi's smile was sad. "I've seen that look before. That particular combination of pride and protective fear. It's what mothers wear when they've carried impossible burdens and refuse to let their children see the weight." Across the room, Minjun was saying something urgent. Sarah shook her head repeatedly, backing away. He reached for her hand, and she jerked back as if burned. The rejection was visible even from a distance, a physical recoil that made Minjun's face crumble. Then Sarah was moving toward Bella with purpose, her expression resolved. "We're leaving," she said when she reached her daughter, voice brooking no argument. "Now." "But we just..." "Now, Bella." Bella had never heard that tone from her mother, equal parts command and desperation. She set down the wine glasses and let herself be pulled toward the exit. Behind them, Minjun stood alone in the corner, watching them leave with the expression of a man watching his last chance at redemption walk out the door. In the taxi home, Sarah stared out the window, silent tears streaming down her face. "Mom, what happened? What did he say to you?" "Nothing," Sarah whispered. "Everything. It doesn't matter." "It obviously matters. You're crying." Sarah finally turned to face her daughter, and Bella saw devastation in her eyes, years of buried pain rising to the surface. Some conversations are 22 years too late, Sarah said. Some wounds don't heal just because someone finally says they're sorry. I don't understand. I know, honey. Sarah took Bella's hand, squeezing tight. And I need you to trust me when I say it's better that way. Promise me something? What? Promise me you'll be careful at that company. He's not what he seems. And proximity to power can be dangerous in ways you don't expect. Bella wanted to push, to demand answers, but her mother's fragile expression stopped her. Instead, she nodded and held Sarah close as the taxi carried them away from the glittering ballroom and its secrets. Neither of them noticed Minjun standing on the steps of the venue, phone in hand, staring at their departing cab with an expression of absolute devastation. She's mine, isn't she? Minjun's voice wasn't a question. He stood in the doorway of the empty boardroom, having texted Sarah to meet him under the pretense of discussing Bella's career trajectory. The office building hummed with late-night cleaning crews and the ambient noise of a city that never truly slept. Sarah set her purse on the conference table with deliberate care, not looking at him. You gave up the right to claim her 22 years ago. That's not what I asked. She's mine. Sarah finally met his eyes, her voice steel-wrapped in velvet. I carried her. I raised her. I bled and sacrificed, and rebuilt my life around her. You made that choice when you walked out of that cafe. Minjun moved into the room, closing the door behind him. The fluorescent lights made his face look haggard, aging him beyond his 48 years. I was 28. Terrified. My career was just beginning, and I thought. You thought wrong. Sarah cut through his excuse like a blade. I was 22. Working 3 jobs. Sleeping on a friend's couch. And I didn't run. I know. The admission hung between them, simple and devastating. Minjun sank into a chair, as if his legs could no longer support him. He pressed his palms against his eyes, shoulders shaking with something that looked like grief. I've seen her every day, he said hoarsely. Watched her work, tested her, pushed her. And every time she succeeded, every time she fought back, I saw you. Saw what we could have made together if I hadn't been such a coward. Don't. Sarah's voice cracked despite her efforts to control it. Don't make this about regret or redemption. You built an empire while I built a life. Those were our choices. Does she know? No. Are you going to tell her? Sarah moved to the window, staring out at the city lights that had once seemed so distant and now felt suffocating. I don't know. Part of me wants to protect her from the pain of knowing her father looked at her and felt nothing. Another part thinks she deserves the truth. I felt everything. Minjun stood, approaching her slowly. That's the problem. The moment she walked into my office, something in me recognized her. I didn't understand it then, but I felt it. Guilt isn't love. No, he agreed quietly. But it's a start. Sarah laughed, the sound bitter and broken. A start? You're 22 years too late for starts. She's grown. She's brilliant. She's everything I hoped she'd be. And she did it without you. I want to be part of her life. The words came out desperate, stripped of corporate authority. However that looks. Whatever role you'll allow me. Please. Sarah turned to face him, tears streaming freely now. And when she asks why you weren't there before, what will you tell her? That her mother wasn't worth the risk to your precious career? I'll tell her the truth. That I was a scared, selfish boy who destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him. That I've spent 22 years building wealth and status while missing the only thing that actually mattered. Pretty words. True words. Minjun reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Sarah, I can't fix the past, but I need her to know. I need to try. Sarah extracted her hand gently, wiping her eyes. There's something you should know. She's been researching her father, going through my old things, asking questions. She's close to finding out. Minjun's face paled. How close? Close enough that when she puts the pieces together, she's going to feel betrayed by both of us. By me for lying. By you for existing. Then let me tell her first. Let me take responsibility.
No.
Sarah's voice turned fierce. If anyone tells her, it'll be me. She's my daughter. This is my choice to make. They stood facing each other across a chasm 22 years wide, two people who'd once created life together and then spent decades running in opposite directions. For what it's worth, Minjun said softly, I'm sorry. For all of it. Sarah nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left him alone in the boardroom with his regrets. Bella's apartment smelled like old coffee and new anxiety. She dumped the contents of the storage box across her bed, her mother's past spread out like evidence at a crime scene. Birth certificate, hospital bracelet, faded photographs, a receipt from a cafe dated 22 years and 9 months ago. Her laptop screen glowed with search results, Mintech Corporation founding members. Executive photographs from 2 decades past. Corporate gala coverage from the year of her conception. And there, in a photo from March of that year, stood a younger Minjun, 28. Ambitious. Attending a tech industry mixer at the same hotel where her mother had worked as a server. The math was too clean to be coincidence. Bella's hands shook as she pulled up her own employee photo, setting it beside the image of young Minjun. Same eyes. Same sharp jawline. Same unconscious habit of tilting her head when concentrating. No, she whispered to the empty apartment. No, no, no. But the puzzle pieces weren't just falling into place. They were crashing down with the force of an avalanche she couldn't outrun. Every strange moment suddenly made sense. His intense attention. The impossible standards. The way he'd looked at her mother at the gala, like seeing a ghost. Sarah's warnings about the company. Her mother's tears in the taxi. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Asterisk, we need to talk. I'm coming over. Asterisk. Bella stared at the message, rage building hot and fast in her chest. Not sadness. Not confusion. Pure, incandescent fury at the conspiracy of silence that had shaped her entire life. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the doorway, seeing the evidence scattered across the bed. Her face crumbled. Tell me I'm wrong. Bella's voice came out deadly calm. Tell me he's not. I wanted to protect you. Sarah stepped inside, closing the door with shaking hands. From what? The truth? My own identity. Bella gestured at the photographs, the documents, the damning timeline. How long were you going to lie to me? I never lied. I just didn't. Omission is lying. Bella's control shattered, voice rising. Every time I asked about my father, every time I wondered why I didn't have what other kids had, you let me believe he was some nameless stranger instead of the man I see every single day. Sarah's tears fell freely now, each one a testament to years of impossible choices. You're right. You're absolutely right. I should have told you. But Bella, please understand, I was trying to spare you the pain of knowing he denied you before you were even born. So, instead, you let me work for him? Report to him? Let him criticize and test and push me without knowing he was evaluating his own daughter? I didn't know you'd apply there. When you got the job, I tried to talk you out of it, remember? But you were so excited, so proud. How could I destroy that by telling you the CEO was the man who abandoned us? Bella sank onto the bed, surrounded by the fragments of her mother's hidden past. What happened? At the gala. When you talked to him. Sarah sat beside her daughter, careful not to touch the evidence. He figured it out.
Saw you.
Recognized something in you that he couldn't name until he saw me. And then he knew. What did he say? That he was sorry. That he wanted to be part of your life. That he'd spent 22 years regretting his choice. Sarah's voice turned bitter. All the things cowards say when confronted with consequences they can't run from. Do you believe him? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, considering. I believe he's sorry. I don't know if that's enough. Bella stared at the photo of young Minjun, the man who'd held her mother once, created her, then walked away to build an empire on the foundation of their erasure. I need to hear it from him. I need him to look me in the eye and admit what he did. Bella, wait. Think about this. I've thought about nothing else. Bella stood, pulling on her jacket with jerky, angry movements. My entire life has been shaped by his choice to deny me. The least he can do is own it. Not like this. Not when you're this angry. I'm going to confront him.
Tomorrow.
At the office. And he's going to tell me the truth in front of everyone who witnessed him build his perfect life on our suffering. Sarah grabbed her daughter's arm, desperate. Please. Let me be there. If you're going to do this, don't do it alone. Bella looked at her mother, really looked at her for the first time since opening that box. Saw the lines carved by years of single parenthood. The premature gray in her hair from stress. The worn-down beauty of someone who'd sacrificed everything. Okay, Bella said softly. Together. They held each other in the small apartment, two women bound by blood and secrets, preparing for a confrontation 22 years in the making. The Mintech boardroom fell silent when Bella entered unscheduled. 10 executives sat around the table, mid-discussion about quarterly projections. Min-jun stood at the head, mid-sentence, freezing when he saw her face. We need to continue this meeting, he said carefully. Bella, if you could schedule, through Mrs. Park. Before we continue, Bella interrupted, her voice carrying across the room with perfect clarity. I have an announcement about CEO Min-jun's family history. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Junho's eyes lit with opportunistic glee. Director Choi's face turned grave. Mrs. Park set down her pen with the slow deliberation of someone watching a disaster unfold. Bella, please. Min-jun's voice cracked on her name. This isn't the time or place. You're right. Bella moved to the center of the room, forcing him to face her fully. The time was 22 years ago. The place was when I was born. But since you weren't there then, I guess now we'll have to do. Director Choi stood slowly. Perhaps we should give you two privacy.
No.
Bella's command stopped him. Everyone stays. 22 years ago, you denied a pregnancy. Denied responsibility. Denied me. Gasps rippled around the table. Phones appeared, recording lights blinking. Min-jun's face cycled through terror and resignation, landing on something that looked like relief. It's true, he said quietly. Everything she's saying is true. Junho leaned forward, smelling blood. This is a PR catastrophe. The board needs to consider. The board needs to shut up, Mrs. Park said sharply, her usual deference abandoned. And listen. Bella pulled an envelope from her jacket, sliding it across the polished table toward Min-jun. DNA test results. I took samples from your coffee cup last week.
Hired a private lab.
Wanted to be absolutely sure before I destroyed your perfectly constructed life. Min-jun's hands trembled as he opened the envelope, scanning the document. His face confirmed what Bella already knew, 99.97% probability of paternity. So now what? Bella demanded. Now that you can't deny it? Now that everyone knows what kind of man built this company? The silence stretched impossibly long. Then Min-jun did something Bella hadn't anticipated. He set down the test results and met her eyes with complete, devastating honesty. You're right, he said. About all of it. I was a coward. I denied you because I was terrified of losing what I'd built. I prioritized wealth and status over responsibility and love. And I've spent 22 years becoming exactly the kind of man who deserves your contempt. That's not. Bella's prepared speech dissolved in the face of his complete surrender. You don't get to just admit it and be forgiven. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Min-jun moved around the table slowly, stopping several feet from her. Close enough to show vulnerability, far enough to respect her space. I'm asking for a chance.
To know you.
To be part of your life, however that looks. To prove that I can be better than the boy who walked away from your mother. Why should I believe anything you say? Because I've seen who you are. His voice strengthened, filled with something that sounded like pride. You're brilliant. Resilient. Everything I claimed to value but actually destroyed when it mattered. You're proof that your mother succeeded where I failed, building something that actually matters. Don't bring her into this. The boardroom doors opened. Sarah entered, moving with a quiet dignity that had carried her through 2 decades of single motherhood. Every eye turned to her. Min-jun's face transformed, guilt, longing, and something deeper colliding visibly. If we're doing this, Sarah said calmly, We're doing it together. She moved to stand beside Bella, facing Minjun and the assembled executives with her chin raised. The mother and daughter presented a united front, undeniable proof of survival without him. Mrs. Sarah, Director Choi said gently, "This must be incredibly difficult." Difficult was raising her alone. This is just honest. Sarah's gaze locked on Minjun. Tell them everything. Not the sanitized version. The truth. Minjun nodded, turning to address the full board. 22 years ago, I had a relationship with Sarah. When she told me she was pregnant, I denied paternity. I gave her cash and told her to disappear. I chose my career over my child. He paused, swallowing hard. I've regretted that choice every day since. But regret doesn't undo harm. It doesn't give back what I stole from both of them. This affects company stability, a rival board member interjected. We need damage control. Press statements. Perhaps the CEO should consider stepping down. Perhaps the CEO should consider being human. Mrs. Park snapped, her usual professionalism abandoned entirely. Making mistakes. Trying to fix them. Or are we in the business of pretending executives don't have lives outside these walls? Bella watched the room divide, some executives calculating PR angles, others showing unexpected sympathy, all of them recording this moment for future leverage. I don't care about your company politics, Bella said, silencing the mounting arguments. I care about one thing. Do you acknowledge me?
Publicly. Fully.
As your daughter. Or do I walk away and you never see me again? The ultimatum hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. Minjun's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Yes, he said without hesitation. Bella is my daughter. I've denied her long enough. Whatever consequences come from that, personally, professionally, I accept them. Sarah made a small sound, something between a sob and a laugh. 22 years of waiting for those words, and they'd finally come in front of witnesses who could never let him take them back. Done, the rival board member said triumphantly, producing his own envelope. DNA test. We need independent verification. Already done, Bella said coldly, sliding a second envelope across the table. Ran 3 separate tests through 3 separate labs. All came back the same. 99.97% match. He's my biological father. Now what? The room erupted in controlled chaos, executives arguing about protocol, Mrs. Park defending Bella's right to know, Junho trying to position himself advantageously. Through it all, Minjun stood frozen, staring at Bella and Sarah like a man seeing salvation he didn't deserve. Director Choi rapped his knuckles on the table, commanding silence. The question isn't whether this is true. The question is what happens next. Bella, what do you want? Bella looked at her mother, seeing decades of strength and sacrifice. Looked at Minjun, seeing genuine remorse wrestling with the consequences of his choices. Looked at the assembled executives, seeing the world that had always existed just beyond her reach. I want the truth, she said finally. No more secrets. No more lies. And I want him to prove, through actions not words, that he's capable of being the father he should have been. That's fair, Minjun said quietly. I'm not finished. Bella's voice turned to steel. I also want a formal promotion. Vice President of Strategic Development. Not because you're my father, because I've earned it through 2 years of impossible standards and perfect execution. I want it in writing. From the board. Unrelated to this revelation. A slow smile spread across Director Choi's face. Clever girl. Using the moment of maximum leverage. I learned from the best, Bella said, glancing at her mother. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, pride radiating from every inch of her weathered face. The board voted. 9-1 in favor. Only Junho dissenting, his opportunity for advancement suddenly evaporating. Mrs. Park produced paperwork with suspicious speed, as if she'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Congratulations, Vice President, she said warmly, sliding the contract toward Bella. Bella signed without reading it, her eyes never leaving Minjun's face. 3 months, she said. You have 3 months to prove you've changed. That you're capable of seeing me as your daughter instead of a problem to manage. If you fail, I'm gone. From the company. From your life. Permanently. I won't fail, Minjun promised. Not again. We'll see. The boardroom cleared slowly, executives filing out with their phones already dialing PR teams and legal advisors. Soon, only Minjun, Sarah, and Bella remained, 3 points of a triangle that had been broken for 22 years. Where do we go from here? Minjun asked, directing the question to both women. Sarah and Bella exchanged a look, mother and daughter, survivors and warriors, the only partnership that had ever mattered. Forward, Sarah said simply. We go forward, together or apart, but forward. Bella nodded. And if you want to be part of that forward, you have to earn it. Every single day. Minjun's shoulders straightened with something that looked like purpose. Then I'll start today. 3 months later, Bella's new office overlooked the city she'd once watched from below. The nameplate on her door read Bella Min, Vice President, in letters that caught the light. Inside, photographs lined her desk. Sarah at her college graduation, Director Choi at her promotion party, Mrs. Park teaching her the intricacies of corporate navigation. And one new photo, taken hesitantly at a family dinner the week before, Bella, Sarah, and Minjun around a table, the distance between them still visible but slowly, carefully closing. The photo showed 3 people learning how to be a family 22 years too late, bound not by blood alone but by the harder, more complicated work of forgiveness and forward motion. Bella turned from the window to find Minjun standing in her doorway, holding 2 coffee cups. Thought you might need caffeine before the investor presentation, he said carefully, still learning the boundaries of fatherhood. Thanks. She accepted the cup, their fingers not quite touching. Dad. The word still felt foreign, tentative. But Minjun's face transformed, hope and gratitude and determination colliding. Ready to show them what the new VP can do? He asked. I've been ready my whole life, Bella said. You're just finally here to see it. They walked toward the boardroom together, not quite family, not quite strangers, but something new being built from the rubble of old mistakes. Behind them, through the office window, the city stretched toward the horizon, infinite with possibility for those brave enough to face their past and build something better from its ruins.